that they had to make. And it's a lesson that black feminists need to take from this. Because the white woman had to choose. Do I want to go with the woman, or do I want to make sure that we instill traditional white power upon which this country was founded? And white women went with the power over the feminism. They went with the racism. They went with racial politics above gender politics.
Now, if Hillary, you said that Hillary and Bill met with the Bilderbergers and they decided that she's going to be a contestant, or they decided that she wasn't going to win, or was all just so far?
Well, she was the president. Hillary was the president, but here's the problem. The problem that happened, Carl, was Donald Trump was never supposed to get as far as he did in being able to earn the respect and trust of the American people. He was simply an object to be used on the way to Hillary's coronation. But, as I've been saying during this whole presidential run, I said Donald Trump's support amongst poor white folks is not only unprecedented, it might cause the powers that be to have to reverse their decision. If they try to rob Donald Trump of the presidency, like they did Al Gore in the year 2000, unlike Al Gore, Donald Trump is not going to fade away into the horizon. You will not be able to placate him with a Nobel Peace Prize for saving the environment as they did with Al Gore after stealing his presidency. How many times did you hear Donald Trump say, if y'all rob me of this, I will fight you all the way to the end? The problem with that, Carl, was that the power structure had to make a serious decision. If we take this and give it to Hillary, does Donald Trump have the type of support in this country where he could cause a civil unrest? Not necessarily a military one, not necessarily a violent one, but could he cause a serious political coup d'etat in this country where everyday white folks, everyday poor white folks, who are the bulk of the American people, would begin to question the foundations of American democracy? The reason Donald Trump is president is that the power structure feared that if they stole the election and gave it to Hillary, as they did with Gore, then right now America might be going through some type of a significant civil strife. They had to give it to him, Carl. He was too powerful in terms of what white people wanted to see. He spoke their language. They never expected a white billionaire to be able to relate to poor white folks. And that's exactly what Donald Trump did.
All right, hold that thought right there, Dr. Umar. We got to take a quick break. We got to check the traffic and the weather in the DMV. And when we come back, I want you to respond to this question. Should we be concerned as black folks? What do we do then? Because you've just laid it out. So what is our response? 800-450-7876. Speak to Dr. Umar Johnson. We're taking calls after the traffic and weather update on 1450 WOL, where information is power. Thanks for staying with us. Our guest, Dr. Umar Johnson. The number to call, speak to him, 800-450-7876. I'm sort of jumping ahead of myself and ask you what we should do. I want to go back a little bit further, Dr. Umar. So why do you think President Obama was elected? Why was he, or selected, if you will? Why was he put in office, and what was he supposed to achieve over those 8 years?
Definitely. Every president of the United States is given a primary domestic mandate and a primary international mandate. Every president. There's a series of mandates, but there's always one that is primary domestically and one that is primary internationally. For President Barack Obama, his international mandate was to open up Africa to the re-exploitation of its mineral content by Western corporations. George Bush destroyed the relationship that America, France, and the UK had with Africa. And as you know, no country can survive without Africa's resources. So after George Bush's cowboy routine on the continent that turned a lot of African legislatures off, they thought that by putting Obama in office, in fact, getting Africa's resources were so key, Carl, so critically important that they had to put a black man in office. That's how critical Africa was. That's why Obama is there. That's how much they needed to make sure they could score a victory for re-exploitation. So Obama was put in, with his father being from Kenya, they felt that would really do the job to make African heads of state comfortable, to put forth the illusion of inclusion that America is now trying to be a little bit more egalitarian around the world. So his international mandate was a success. He succeeded. He accomplished that. Africa has been thoroughly recolonized by America and the other European forces by President Barack Obama. The domestic mandate was to see to it that black people, had their civil rights totally snatched away from them and given to homosexuals, Latinos, and white women. And Obama's domestic mandate was number one, to not only make homosexuality thoroughly accepted in the black community, but to also hold in check all black struggle, all black effort towards progress. And of course, he used Al Sharpton to help them do this, but to hold off on doing anything for black folks long enough to take everything from black folks, the Civil Rights Bill, the Voting Rights Act, and give it to gays, women, and Latinos and immigrants. And that's exactly what Obama did. And we stayed silent so long, Carl, under that. For 8 years, black people refused to hold Obama accountable. Even with the police murders of our children, we still refused to make him do anything for us. So after 8 years of black people not doing nothing politically as it relates to the president, it's going to be difficult to hold Donald Trump or anyone after Donald Trump. Let's be clear. Our grandchildren, Carl, our grandchildren will still be suffering from the mistakes that Negroes made during the 8 years of the Obama administration by letting him literally get away with murder.
Wow. There's some credence to what you say about opening up Africa, because AFRICOM now has its widest, biggest footprint on the continent ever. And I know you've been traveling. You've been all over Africa. You've been to the Caribbean. You've been to Europe. What are they saying about Barack Obama? Because I know one time they thought he was sort of a messiah. Are they still feeling the same way?
Yes.
They are?
Not anymore. Not anymore. I was in Africa when Obama was running for president. And as you said, I just came back from Africa. And the attitude has totally changed. The attitude has totally changed in many respects. Whereas before, they saw him as a godsend, as a messiah, someone who was going to help redevelop Africa and pull her into the 21st century. It's totally different now. Now when you go throughout Africa, and I was in Kenya, okay, which is, his father's hometown, and the attitude has totally shifted now. They now see him for what he was, which was a puppet of white supremacy. Obama's job was to take from Africa, and his job was to take from black people all the gains that we had made over the past 50 years. He's taken all that and given it away. And remember, when Obama came into office, Carl, black people were still the priority minority. We were the priority minority up until 2008. Guess what? We are no longer the priority minority. The homosexual movement is in a tug of war with women, and they are in a tug of war with Mexicans and Latinos and other immigrants, for whom the priority minority is going to be under Donald Trump. But it clearly is not black folks. And you see this, Carl, because when you look at the post-election violence that has followed Donald Trump's campaign, when you look on CNN and all these other news outlets, when they talk about racial violence, they're not even showing black people that much. I'm seeing violence against Arabs. I'm seeing violence against homosexuals. I'm seeing violence against European Jews. I'm hardly hearing about violence against black people. We have allowed Obama to remove us as a priority minority.
So having said that, should we be concerned? Because, earlier we did a couple of shows with some folks, and they said they were genuinely concerned about Trump rolling back the situation to the 50s and 60s. You just said that our grandchildren are going to be paying for the mistake that we made. Are you concerned?
Oh, without question. There's two things that come to mind when I think about Donald Trump. Number one, everyone's worried about Donald Trump. He's not the nemesis, Carl. Donald Trump has no political experience. He's never held elected office. You know what that is? That means he's going to be relying on his cabinet. All of Donald Trump's decisions will be made by the cabinet. This will truly be a president by proxy. All of his presidential decisions will be by proxy. I'm concerned about the people he has around him in the cabinet. And let us be clear. Although Rudy Giuliani did not get a post, although Newt Gingrich did not get an official post, although Governor Christie of New Jersey did not get an official post, although former President George W. Bush did not get and did not want an official post, you know that they will be his shadow cabinet, Carl. All of his decisions will be made by some of the kings and queens of white supremacy and white racist America. And that's what I'm most concerned about. Not Donald Trump, but the decisions that he will make that will simply pass to him by those who really dictate policy for the Republican Party. That's number one. Number two, Donald Trump, rightly or wrongly, is being used as a symbol for the re-emergence of traditional white racist over male chauvinistic power. That is a concern for me. Not that Donald Trump will have to do anything himself. He has poor white folks who are now re-energized. They feel like they're back in control of America. They're the ones out here spraying swastikas. They're the ones out here beating up our children. I just got a text message yesterday from a brother in Canada. Because it's not just about America, because since America is so powerful, whatever happens here reverberates around the world. I got a text message from a brother in Canada who was jumped on the bus by 4 white folks. Okay, this is part of this post-election violence. So it's not Trump. It's what everyone else is going to do by using him as a symbol for the reemergence of white racist power.
Well, let me ask you the question, and I asked a lot of our scholars this question as well. So why is it always us? I want to get your thoughts. Why is it all picking on us? Are they going after the Latinos? Are they going after the Asians? Why is it, are we easy pickings or low-hanging fruit?
Yes,
what is it?
We're easy pickings. We're easy pickings, and part of it is our fault, Carl. Part of that is our fault. Listen, when you know you're about to go into a war, what do? You stock up. If you know that there's about to be a drought, you make sure you put your water together. We did not do that under Obama. Everyone knew, whether it was Trump or someone else, most people knew that the next president would be a Republican because they had to definitely bring about the Obama backlash. White folks were going to demand an Obama backlash, a return to traditional white overrule. Everyone knew this. Gays knew it. Women knew it. Immigrants, Latinos knew it. Everyone knew it. Even black people knew it to an extent. But we did not prepare for life after Obama. So, for example, homosexuals are upset right now, but guess what, Carl? They got 3 laws under Obama. They got over 500 federal appointments from Obama. They got a Supreme Court justice who is appointed until they decide to retire. The Supreme Court, that is a lifetime appointment. Same thing with the Latinos. They got a Supreme Court justice. White women got a Supreme Court justice. So they knew that the Obama backlash would come, that without question, the next president will be a Republican. So they stocked up on political right and political might. Speaking of power, they stocked up on political right and they stocked up on political might. Black people did not do that. We sat around and we celebrated Obama, we worshiped Obama, we praised Obama, and we castigated and repudiated any black people who said, hey guys, this is not going to last forever. He is not going to be president forever because they were black. We knew this because they were black. So the only good thing out of it is that now politics are above ground. Everything is what it is. There's no more Obama deception about what we're really living under. And because of that, that means when we do fight, when we do rally, when we do push for certain concessions, we can do it unapologetically African now because America is back to being what America has always been, an overt basis for aggressive white racism. And that is back on the surface. So now racial politics are back to the forefront. Everyone is going to fight for the best interests of their own people, and we need to start fighting too. We are at the point now, Carl, that if we're not going to be unapologetically African about everything that we're going to do, if we're not going to be bold in our proclamations about how America has treated us, we will not survive this century. I'm concerned that black people will not survive the 21st century if we do not begin to accept the reality.
Right, hang on a second, Doc. We got to take this quick break. Sure. Hang on a second. Wow, This is getting deep. 800-450-7876 to speak to Dr. Umar Johnson. We'll take your calls after this short break on 1450 WOL, where information is power. Thanks for rolling with us. And our guest, Dr. Umar Johnson. If you're in the DMV, he's going to be here this weekend. We'll let you know where. So you like some of this conversation, folks, you can get it there as well. 800-450-7876. Dr. Umar, I'm going to let you finish up what you were saying before we left for the break.
Definitely, Carl. 3 things we have to do during the Trump era. Number one, we have to regain our status as priority minority. And of course, I hate using the word minority, but I'm just using it within a political context that is used in this country. We have to regain that status. The reason why homosexuals were able to overtake black folks as priority minority is because homosexuals are unapologetic about advocating their issues. When you look at Mexicans, Latinos, they are unapologetic about advocating their issues. I heard the earlier caller you were speaking with about the Native American issue. They're unapologetic about advocating their issues. Okay, women, the feminist movement, they are unapologetic. Black people were very apologetic. We felt that we had to stop screaming about black issues so President Obama could have a comfortable presidency. And guess what? He had a very comfortable presidency at our expense. We made him do nothing, he did nothing. So we got to reclaim that. And the only way we're going to be able to reclaim that is we have to get loud about it. We got to get very, 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 very aggressive about it. We have to definitely be unapologetic now about issues that matter to black folks. And it's going to be a long, hard fight, Carl, because obviously the alibi for not doing nothing for us is obviously going to be, if Obama didn't have to serve black people, why do I? But guess what? That's over with. There's nothing we can do about the mistakes we made in the past. Reclaim priority minority status. Number two, we have to definitely intensify the need for black institutions and organizations. We need infrastructure, and we need it now more than ever. And it's such a coincidence we're discussing that now, Bob, because as you know, this is one of my worst times of the year, because this is when black people all over America purge billions of dollars on unnecessary junk in the name of Jesus Christ, and that the effects of this shopping frenzy is going to reverberate in our community and reverberate in other people's community. It is absolutely insane that in Philadelphia, we're going to spend $3 billion on Christmas. New York City is going to spend over $10 billion on Christmas. Houston, Texas is going to spend over $10 billion on Christmas. But we don't have supermarkets, we don't have schools, we don't have hospitals, we don't have gas stations. How do you spend this type of money on useless gifts? Most of those gifts, neither you nor your children will even be bothered with them 30 days after Christmas. And in doing this, not only are you wasting the money, Carl, you're giving the money to other people to put them in a stronger position to come back and oppress you even more. You're giving the Jews more money to gentrify your community. You're giving the Latinos more money to take over your businesses. You're giving the Arabs and the East Indians more money to continue to liquidate the assets of your community. Not only are we hemorrhaging the money, we're giving it to the exact same people who are in competition with us for dominance of the American political economy. So two, intensify infrastructure building. And number three, Carl, is unity. We have to strike a foundation where we can stop fighting each other over superficial and petty differences. Now is the time to unite. Because guess what? If we conduct ourselves the same way during the Trump administration that we did under the Obama administration, without question, this will be our last century ever in America. So this right here is a crossroads point for black people to unify, a crossroads point for black people to change in a significant way our economic behavior, and it is a crossroads moment for black people to reclaim priority minority status.
All right, before we go to calls, we had a guest on, I think it was yesterday, Brother Pascal Roybert, and he says this is a great time for us now to come up with a new crop of black leaders because the old group doesn't count. Your thoughts on this? It's a great
I totally
opportunity.
agree with him. Well, it's not that they don't count, it's that most of them are at an age now where their ability to hold the attention of the youth have passed. We know that all revolutions are made by the people, and those revolutions are actually made by the youngest amongst those people. So you look at Dr. King, you look at Stokely, you look at Malcolm, you look at Medgar, you look at Huey. Most of them were young, and even as they aged, they still were able to keep the attention, of the youth. Al Sharpton can no longer do that. Jesse Jackson can no longer do that. Minister Farrakhan is going to begin to have to look at other leadership within the Nation of Islam to be able to keep the attention of the youth, although he does a better job than all of the other leaders nationally in keeping the attention of the youth. But yes, he's absolutely correct. It's not that they're necessarily no longer violent, it's that they no longer have the type of influence amongst the masses. You're dealing with millennials now. You're dealing with Generation X. They don't really know about the Black Power movement. They wasn't there for the civil rights struggle. Many of them know very little about slavery itself because it's no longer being taught in schools as much. So because you're dealing with a new generation of youth, a millennial generation of youth, you're going to need a millennial leadership that can galvanize that young energy into constructive channels.
All right, 800-450-7876, line 4. Nabuda, you have a question for Dr. Umar?
Yes. Hey, y'all, look here. They say we're going to let you know from the top people, the rich people from the White House down to the street. They say, and they say that y'all old leaders, we're going to let y'all know what we can do. They say, look, they let the man go in, somebody got into the White House, no dogs attack. They said, we could have been knocked him. We let y'all know that he's not protected. And then down to the lower class, the street people, we're going to let y'all youth know this. We can shoot y'all in the head anytime you want to.
Nabuda, do us a favor. Put in a question for him so he can respond.
So, I mean, what do you, I mean, and Anaheim said the same thing. They can knock you off, and they got machines that like x-rays. They can, any leader that step out there, a group or single, they can kill you. Do you agree with that, Dr. Umar?
Well, without question, we do know that the repression against African Americans is going to be greater as we do try to reclaim that priority minority status, because what America wants to do going forward is they want to take black people off the table of political discussion. Not only will that be one less minority group that they have to deal with, it's also the most significant minority group that they will no longer have to deal with. You take African Americans off the table, you don't have to deal with mass incarceration. You take African Americans off the table of discussion, you don't have to deal with reparations, you don't have to deal with miseducation, you don't have to deal with poor health care to the extent that is taking place. So by removing us off the table of discussion, it saves America a whole lot of headache as it relates to being accountable about the things that matter to us. That's also why you see an intensification to get our young people, to get our millennials and our Generation X's to identify with other movements. This is why they want homosexual black men and women to identify with the homosexual movement instead of black people. They want sisters to identify with the feminist movement instead of black people. They want our young people to identify as middle class as opposed to being identified with black people, identify as poor. But they're giving us all these different identities, and all these different political groups are intensifying their recruitment of black people. We have more black people registered in both the Democratic and the Republican Party than before, because they're trying to give us alternative identities so the black identity can die.
All right, 800-450-7876. Line 5, Roy's calling us from Fort Washington in Maryland. Roy, you have a question for Dr. Umar?
Well, Carl, this is more focused toward your original statement. Do we have any concern with Donald Trump? And I do. My concern is more of him as a commander-in-chief. Let me give just a little simple example. There was something that he tweeted out this week that is more significant than people think it is. Say, for example, if the old adage, if you got a general and he's walking out of the building and he looks and he see the flag and he see these rocks and he makes a statement, I wish those rocks were red, white, and blue. The colonel that walked out with that general gonna turn to that senior sergeant and say, hey, we want those rocks red, white, and blue. Sergeant's gonna go get some privates. Next morning, the general come out, those rocks are red, white, and blue. Donald Trump tweeted out that Americans that burn the flag should do a year in jail, lose their citizenship. If Donald Trump makes a statement like that as president at a press conference, his chief of staff or somebody gonna call back, and you got these PhD, Ivy League grads, staffers, and that they're gonna get busy and they're gonna write a policy and this policy and will hold up in any court in the U.S. and you got these, I'll just say the Center for Patriotic Americans. These guys are the same. They're all political grads. And the next morning Donald Trump wakes up, he's got an executive order on his desk that'll stand up in any court in America that would send people to jail for burning the flag.
All right, let's give him a chance to respond to that. I hear your concerns, Roy. The Second Amendment, when we talked about this before you got on, Dr. Umar, about how he seems to have control of the media. Is that a concern about you? People will be afraid to express themselves, like Roy mentioned, or just burn the flag. You can do whatever you wanted to. That's part of the Constitution.
I don't think that there will be. Okay, let me take this back. I could potentially see a situation where the Trump administration, as part of this whole return to white glory movement, I could see a situation where the Supreme Court is asked to deliberate on whether or not protecting the burning of the U.S. flag, or whether or not that could be exempted from Second Amendment rights. So, for example, the Pledge of Allegiance is an example of a custom, if you would, in America that is exempted, okay, from separation of church and state. Even though the word God is in the Pledge of Allegiance is allowed to be stated. So there is a precedent of having certain customs and rituals and even laws and policies in place that do contradict the language of the Bill of Rights. So I could potentially see something happen like that. I could see it. But black people, we don't have a history of burning the flag, and for me, I'm really not interested in symbolic gestures of power, because as black people, we wrote the book on symbolic gesturing for power. We need to get involved in actual manifestations that reflect the power that we have within ourselves. I'm tired of the symbolism and the empty rituals. You know, I say it all the time, that the black community, especially the black conscious community, is like another religion. You know, two things participate in the rituals, and you can be Christian. Show up and participate in the rituals. You are a
Hang
Muslim.
on a second, Doc. We got to take a quick break here. Check the traffic and weather in the DMV. 800-450-7876. Speak to Dr. Umar Johnson. Take your calls after the traffic and weather update on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Now back to the Carl Nelson Show. On Washington, D.C.'s 1450 WOL Radio.
Thanks for staying with us, and our guest, Dr. Umar Johnson. As I mentioned, he's going to be in the DMV area this weekend. I'll let you know where, or he'll let you know where before he leaves. 800-450-7876 is the number to call to speak to him. Before we go back to him, just to remind you, coming up in the next few days, metaphysician Dr. B is going to join us. Also, holistic doctor Stephen Tates from Atlanta is going to be here. Haitian activist and attorney Dan Tozil. Also, educator Dr. Walter Williams. You know, Dr. Walter Williams has a bet out there. If anybody can prove that person by the name of Jesus the Christ or Muhammad the Prophet actually walked on this face of the earth, he'll give them out.
Is whether or not we want our young children to be radical or whether we want them to be conformists. And see that the issue here, Carl, is that the adults are no longer radical. Once we went to college and got our education and got our jobs and bought our house in the suburbs, we became conformists. And see, the children by nature are radical because children by nature, human nature, is based on truth. So anything that doesn't reflect truth and justice is not going to find fertile ground in the minds of children. So the contradiction that Black America has with the young people is we don't want them getting in trouble, but at the same time, they understand the only way to make change is to get in trouble. And this is exactly why the youth do not listen to the adults, because when we looked at what happened in Ferguson and we looked at what happened in Baltimore with Freddie Gray and Eric Garner and all across the country, it was the youth that took to the streets in revolt. Whether we agree totally with what they did or not doesn't matter. The truth of the matter is they were willing to speak truth to power while the adults stood back and were afraid to lose their capitalist trenches. And so we need to reevaluate ourselves, Carl, because if we don't start getting involved with the youth, they will reject us and destroy us on their pathway to destroying white supremacy itself.
All right, 800-450-7876. Speak to Dr. Umar Johnson. Line 1, Seydu is calling us from Virginia. Seydu?
Hello, Dr. Omar. Hello, Carl. This is really a great conversation. I'm an immigrant from Zaire, and I became a citizen a couple of years ago. One thing that I notice is that we are a victim of divide and conquer. That's what I see. And I really think that we are not uniting. We're not utilizing the power that we have in terms of, you look at some of these NBA players. They're not speaking out some of the issues. Look at these NFL players. They're not speaking out some of the issues. And as a millennium, I try to organize, even at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. I try to, people are just distracted. They're too much into material things. They're too much into other things. So my question to you, Doctor, what does it take to press the reset button as far as us? Because I don't think Trump cares about us. He told us from day one how he feel about us. Okay? The first cabinet position that he nominated was Jeff Sessions to the Justice Department. And everybody needs to make a note of that, because what does that mean? All the civil rights are gone. The civil rights division is going to be erased. The voter rights, you're going to have mass voter oppression on stores throughout the country. Everything that's being done is going to be on stores. So my question to you, what does it take for us to regroup, to unite? Is it a conference? I just want to know what it is.
Okay, good question. And the answer is twofold. Number one, we got to keep in mind that you can't reset human consciousness or the human brain the way you can reset a computer. Whatever is planted in the subconscious of a human will be there until they die. This is why they always say the first of the brain will rule that brain. And the first 15 years of a child is normally when the subconscious is largely programmed. So number one, we got to do a better job of preventing our young people who are radical by nature from becoming conformists. So that's the first thing we have to do. Second thing, we got to focus more on those young people. As far as the adults go, we have to do our best to find those who we feel can still be salvaged. Okay, some of our adults are still salvageable, but the wisdom is in knowing the difference between those which are salvageable and those that are not. See, here is the issue. The central contradiction of the black predicament in America is that we are exactly like the people we are fighting. We are exactly like the people that we are fighting. It doesn't matter how much we fight against capitalism, oppression, selfishness, racism, and discrimination. All of that lives in us now because it has been internalized. So that is to say that if we don't wage a simultaneous war against the power structure as well as that system that exists within us that was inculcated from the power structure, we will lose anyway. Take a look at Africa. When they finally achieved the African revolutions of the 60s, and they kicked the French out and kicked out the Europeans, guess what? The same revolutionary leaders who could not wait to expel the European became just like the Europeans. Look at South Africa. I just came back from a 30-day tour of South Africa. What's the big problem in South Africa? The big problem in South Africa now is that the ANC, the party of Mandela, the ruling government, is beginning to lose a lot of its support and constituency because after they came to power, after they overthrew apartheid, they still continue to practice the same type of government that the apartheid system practiced, which is basically catering to the rich and ignoring the poor. That is a big problem that we have. So it's not just overthrowing white supremacy, it's also overthrowing the white supremacy that lives within each of us.
Wow. Doc, they want you to repeat the tour that you have for the youngsters?
Yes, the Black College and Consciousness Tour, Atlanta, Georgia, June the 28th until July the 12th. It's 14 days and 14 nights. Parents are not allowed to go. I will have chaperones just like last year. If the child doesn't live in Atlanta, all you have to do is fly them in, put them on the mega bus, drive them in, or you can put them on the train. Parents will communicate with me how their children are coming in. Every child needs to be there by the night of June the 27th. The day before, they must all be there at an undisclosed hotel where they will all meet the night before, and then we head out early in the morning to start visiting our first college, probably be Morehouse, followed by Spelman on the morning of the 28th. So parents do not have to physically bring the child. I will make sure that either myself or one of the other responsible chaperones secure them from the bus station, the train station, or the airport. And registration for that, Carl, will begin on New Year's Day, January the 1st. You will be able to register your child at princeofpanafricanism.eventbrite.com. They will never be the same. I'm still hearing from the children from last year, Carl. They can't wait to sign up for this year. So it's really a life-changing experience.
What age are we talking about?
11 to 17. 11 to 17. And let me also say this, Carl. Last year when we did the tour, I Facebook Live most of the visits to the different Black history sites and colleges. The adults loved it so much that I decided that in March of this year, okay, before we do the college tour for the 11 to 17-year-olds, I'm seriously considering putting together a tour for the young adults, 18 to 25. So last year's tour that took us to Lincoln and Cheney and the Great Blacks to Wax Museum and the Frederick Douglass Home, we will now do that for the young adults, 18 to 25. So if you have a young adult in your home, 18 to 25, they still don't know what to do with their life, they're going through stuff, then they'll be able to go on last year's North Tour this year. So we have two tours, 11 to 17 out of Atlanta and 18 to 25 out of New York City.
All right. 800-450-7876. Johnny's calling us from Long Beach, California. He's on line 3. Johnny, you're on with Dr. Umar.
Hey, Carl, thanks for taking my call. How you doing, Dr. Umar?
Peace,
Dr. Umar, I wanted to ask you about what you're talking about. Later on, you wanted to do like a litmus test for people to see how black they were, or where they would go along with the struggle. I mean, in that scenario, or using those, what about people who are biracial? And it seems to me in the future that we.
All right, Dr. Umar, you want to respond to the right
Certainly. Well, first, let me clarify. I'm not interested in a black test. I'm not interested in who's the blackest conscious-wise. I'm interested in who's the committed. In fact, my lecture in Queens next Saturday, the 11th, Queens, New York, I'm going to focus on the difference between black consciousness and black intelligence. Being conscious doesn't mean a whole lot to me. Being intelligent. Intelligence speaks to what are you doing to transform. Consciousness is purely awareness. Consciousness speaks to a church mentality of being aware of something. But intelligence actually speaks to you doing the things that need to be done. So I am willing to organize with black people who are not necessarily conscious, but who are committed to to changing our reality. That's the only test I'm interested in. As far as biracial Africans, and I hate using the term biracial because it's not a term that I use. It's not even a scientifically valid term. When a black man lays down with a white woman and has a child, that child is not half white. Those 23 European chromosomes were genetically deficient. The 23 African chromosomes were genetically dominant. But when you make a child with a white woman, that
So
child
hang on a
is
second, Doc. We
99.
gotta take this quick break real quick. Getting interesting right here. It's the Big Show. Rolls on from 1450. WOL, where information is power.
WOL Radio.
And thanks for rolling with us and our guest, Dr. Umar Johnson. Just to remind you, some of the folks coming up in the next few days: metaphysician Dr. B, holistic doctor Stephen Tate, Haiti activist attorney Danto Zill, educator Dr. Walter Williams. Some of you know Dr. Walter Williams as the one who put on the table, it's been 20 years now, says if you can prove that a man named Jesus the Christ or Muhammad the Prophet actually walked on the face of this earth, he'll give you $10,000. And that's been sitting there. Nobody's been able to claim it. And he says, you got to use facts. Don't use the Bible or the Quran. And he's ready to give it up. But let's go back to Dr. Umar. Dr. Umar, I'll let you finish responding to Johnny from Long Beach, California's call.
Yes, sir, Carl. What I was saying to Brother Johnny is I don't really believe in this biracial thing. It's a political construct. Biologically, when a black person reproduces with someone of another race, our DNA dominates that process. That child is 99.9% African, okay? And for me, a biracial African is still an African. You know, I agree with the Honorable Marcus Garvey and most of the Pan-Africanists before him that we cannot afford to separate ourselves based on European political construct. If a black person has a black mother or a black father, I consider them African. Period, point blank, end of story. If one of your parents is an African, then so are you. But my biracial brothers and sisters are more than welcome to be a part of Team Pan-African. Their children are more than welcome to attend the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy when it is open. But I do want to be clear. Although you might be the product of a biracial relationship, you must be committed to not engaging in that same type of behavior when you select your mate. In other words, you might be a biracial man, but your wife better be African. You might be a biracial woman, but your husband better be African. You need to be committed to African people, whether you are biracial or 100% African.